Hey, Latinos in Clinical Research Community, welcome to our first webinar for 2024. Today with me is one of our other co-founders, Ashley Margot. Aside from myself, Monica should be joining us. And today we have a very special guest, Ivan Castillo, who's a clinical research professional and associate director for a large international CRO in Mexico. So Ivan, thank you for being part of our webinar today. I want to pass it on to you, and you can give us a little introduction, your background, tell us more details, educational, professional background, and how you got started in clinical research.
Okay. Hi, Judy. Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank to all of you, all of the directors and all the committee in Latinos in Clinical Research for the invite. I'm very happy to share this space with the community and with all of you. Let me introduce a little bit about myself. As you said, my name is Ivan Castillo. I'm based here in Mexico City. And while I have been working in clinical research for around 15 years, I'm working in a top international CRO in Mexico. And while I'm joined in this file for around 15 years, and while my career started basically first in the pharma industry, I started working in manufacturing areas, and then while I was working in the pharma industry, I realized that this war exists to develop drugs and medicine. And the first time I realized that this field was very interesting. So I started looking a little bit how I can be inserted in this kind of industry. So after 2 years working in pharma industry, I look for different opportunities to join into clinical research, especially in the CROs. And then I got an opportunity here in Mexico. And since the beginning, I started first as assistant, as a project assistant. As you know, a project assistant or clinical trial assistant is the name of one of the entry levels in clinical research. I started on that position. Then I have the opportunity to move into the CRA world as a clinical research associate. I worked as a CRA for around 5 years. And then I started my career in the side of the manager as a managing or leading teams of CRAs first in Mexico, then in Central America. And then I had another opportunity to continue my career in leading and managing teams, but now in a regional perspective. Actually, I'm working in the FSP unit. This is a model that is known as a functional partnership services. We provide services for all the sponsors in terms of the clinical monitoring, but basically. And I have the opportunity to lead in teams, not only in Mexico, but in all the Americas, excluding US, that is included Canada, Mexico, Central America, and different countries of the South America. So this is a little bit about how I have been working all this time along in clinical research here in Mexico.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, you had different areas that you worked in different roles. And I actually do have a question. Back then, when you were looking for an opportunity to enter the clinical research space, which you said you started as a clinical trial assistant, was this just positions you were looking for in Mexico only? And was it easy to find that? Was there a lot of opportunities? What does that look like, the workforce in Mexico for clinical research?
Okay, well, this is an interesting question because, at least for me, it was not easy to insert into the clinical research industry. Regarding my education, I am a microbiologist, and I also studied a master's degree in biomedicine and molecular biotechnology. And considering that, my education and that I had been working previously in the pharma industry, I consider that as the first instance, it would be easy to join into clinical research, because, oh, come on, I have a master's degree, I am a microbiologist, I have working in the in the pharma industry. But, what was my surprise that to join into clinical research is not nothing easy. And when I started looking for an opportunity, every CRO, in every interview that I have taken place, it was the same statement that, oh, sorry, Ivan, you don't have experience in clinical research. So even though you have your education, you have your experience in pharma, this is not working for us. So you need to get a clinical research experience in order to join into this kind of industry. So for me, at least, it was not easy. I knock at different doors in different companies, and always have received the same message. So, well, after several attempts, I received this kind of opportunity. But the thing it was that I had to start getting experience since the entry level position. So that's why I started as a project assistant, as a clinical trial assistant, like maybe everyone that had joined into this industry. And then, well, this was not easy. In my time when I started in clinical research like 15 years ago, the positions in CRAs for CRAs or this kind of roles in CTAs were not too much. The real thing that is that in Mexico during the last years, I would say maybe the last 10 years, the growth in this industry, well, the industry has grown very significantly in Mexico. Nowadays, I don't know, but the market has increased, maybe, I don't know, 50, 60% based on some reports. And it is expected to continue growing the clinical research industry, not only in Mexico, but also in other countries in Latam.
Ivan, hola.
Hola, hola.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
This is super exciting to hear because especially obviously we have a lot of audience in Latin America.
Yeah.
And also we have many students from the CRC academies and the other academies that we have that are located in Latin America. So it's exciting because obviously um, we want to provide opportunities. And I wanted to ask this, who was the company that gave you the first chance? Because that can be memorable, right? Not every, as you mentioned, the majority of the organizations say no, right? And then you have somebody that gave you that opportunity. Could you
Yeah.
just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. The company who gave me the opportunity was PPD. And I remember that at that time I received a call for the recruiter to say, okay, Ivan, this is the recruiter for PPD. I received your CV 100 times, so stop to doing this. I have a review with. And I said, oh, okay, well, I have sent it to you several times just in case you have not received it. But I remember the message that she told me, I have reviewed your CV, and considering your experience, considering your background, it is complicated to join into clinical research because you don't have experience in this area. But considering that you have been very insistent on this, the only thing that I can do for you is that I can give you the opportunity to go into the interview process, but you need to start since the entry level position. So even though maybe you can consider this a step back, the idea is that you can start involving in clinical research experience. So I decided to take
Okay,
this.
but it was also your decision or your determination to get it. So
Yeah,
you were
absolutely.
sending it. So that's important to know too, because a lot of people get discouraged. Oh, I sent it already, and they say no, but they send it to different jobs. And yes, Perla, thank you, PPD.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
so it, but it was also your determination that actually took you to that place. So, like I say, many people say, "Oh, I have applied so many times to so many job opportunities," but they don't have that persistence. And I mean, it's as easy as keep on forwarding your CV every week to the same person or
Yeah,
to the same place, right? It's as easy
exactly.
as that. You don't have to look for anything else. It's just keep on sending it until they get tired of it. This is
Like
actually the
50,
second
50 or
time.
100 times.
Yeah. This is the second time I hear somebody mentioning the same.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. I mean, it's that determination. Okay, my next question is,
Yeah.
that company, when you applied to PPD, it was PPD Mexico or PPD United States?
No, it was PPD Mexico. At the time I joined it to the clinical research industry, the company has been based here also in Mexico. An office has been already based in Mexico.
Okay, and then, and have you ever worked with United States, with a company located in United States and not in Mexico?
No. I have not had the opportunity yet to work with a company in the US, but in my role, considering that it's a global role, I have been in touch with different people in the United States and in other countries.
Okay, because we interviewed somebody probably like 2 years ago that lives in Mexico. He's Mexican, obviously, and he works for a company in Europe. So
Oh,
it's similar scenario, but different country.
yeah, I
Again,
know.
quick question. So me too, actually going into the CRO space, my first opportunity was with PPD as well. And so I can resonate with that. No longer with them, but yeah, I mean, PPD really gave a great beginning for me. But I'm curious for you, how one of the things that I realized, because I worked here in the US, there really wasn't a whole lot of maybe other than one individual that I knew at the time, but he's also no longer in a director position there at PPD. That was, 100% Latino. And in the US, I see, and not just at PPD, but in general, I've seen that it isn't as common, and I wonder how in Mexico, how do they go about, I guess you could say, nurturing the growth for individuals to get into higher leadership roles, because I do feel like our community needs more of that. And so, I'm just curious how that happens over there in Mexico.
Well, as you know, for example, in Mexico, the industry has grown a lot. So the people used to move from one role to another, even from one CRO to another, or from one sponsor to another very quickly. And maybe you have heard a lot about the shortness of resources in clinical research industry. And one of the reasons is because the industry has grown a lot, that we don't have enough time to develop different people in this kind of industry. And also, obviously, in Mexico, there are at this time different programs where people can be trained in clinical research. But this is more recently. Several years ago, there are just a few. You can find just a few training programs in clinical research. So, along the time, this kind of training has been increased a lot, and have led the people to get more involved into clinical research, so they can even look for more opportunities, not only in Mexico, even globally. So we have several examples, and I have some friends that I have now they started working in clinical research, and now some of them are working in the US, in Canada, in Europe. So at the end, we are trying to do our best to train people to develop, to provide with the best skills and scenarios in order to they can continue growing in this area.
Sure. Thank you for that. And yes, if you do have any colleagues that are, in the leadership roles, we'd love to be connected with them. We really want to make sure that we, and not just Latinos, Afro-Latinos, all diverse backgrounds, so that we can then give that exposure to the community, because I think it's extremely important, and so I'm very appreciative of you making the time to be here today. I'm really happy to hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wanted to ask, oh, sorry. No,
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Going back to that topic, so you did mention the workforce has grown a lot in clinical research in Mexico. Would you say at this time there are a lot more opportunities and not so many people that are qualified to fill those, or is it vice versa? What do you say
No,
at this? I don't know, based on what you see.
well, I think that at this time, well, during the last years, the opportunities has been growing. But even the people sometimes do not know about this industry, about this file. Obviously, after the pandemic, the people recognize more what is clinical research, right? About at least they can recognize what is phase 3 because of the vaccines. But before the pandemic, I believe that there are a lot of people that doesn't know about this industry. After the pandemic, the interest to grow in the clinical research increased a lot. Different universities, different communities, different associations has been implemented different kind of training programs for the people. So I think that in this way it can work in both sense. And the idea is again that we can provide the necessary skills for the people to join into the clinical research industry.
Yeah, that's great.
I think Judy, you cut.
All the staff at PPD Mexico bilingual.
Well, I will say that at least working in clinical monitoring, in clinical operation is mandatory, not only in PPD, in all industries, in sponsoring CROs to have to be bilingual. Maybe not in an expert level. As you can see, I'm not expert speaking English for sure. I'm not native, but at least we require people to speak and to can interpret, read, listen, and hear in English, because all the information that we use, as you know, is in English. And something that I will say is that the language is one of the main barriers for Latinos community to join into clinical research industry. I have found several during in my career, I have found several even colleagues or friends that they want to join into clinical research industry, but because of the language, because they don't manage a good level of English, they are not reaching the position or the opportunities in clinical research. So basically, it's mandatory to the language skills in these cases.
Yeah, actually, that was my question when I was gonna ask before Julie. It was, I mean, everything, like you mentioned, everything is in English when you're working on the environment, right?
Exactly.
So, okay. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's the same. That's the same that the older person that we interviewed a while ago mentioned to us. He was working on the data part, on the data management and all of that, and he mentioned the same. Everything is in English. So, I
Yeah.
mean, if you have English and you have maybe some sort of background in healthcare and you have the desire to get into the industry, is that you have at least two of the most important parts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for those who are listening in this webinar, if you are interested to join into clinical research, the first thing that you need to do is to study English. It's basic and it's mandatory because we
Yeah.
are like a global industry. So even though we have like local regulation that could be managed in a local language, it is mandatory to have contact with other people in different parts of the world. So English is basic for this kind of industry, I would say.
Very interesting.
I was curious, given your position, I guess kind of shifting a little bit is that the diversity is obviously it's been a big, issue, but it's definitely kind of hitting the main stage, I think, coming 2024, and even more so with the Latino population. And I was curious for your opinion and your background. How is it in Mexico in regards to, being able to actively, bring on patients? I mean, I know you can't get into too much detail, but, how is it, how do you feel that it is with diversity, how things are going in your experience, not just the PPD, but just in general? How are you seeing it in your particular role? Because normally we see individuals that are monitors and site owners, but as far as your position, this is, I would say, one of the first times we've had somebody from Mexico that has your role. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, you know that now diversity is a very hot topic, right? In clinical research, even there are, as far as I know, there are new regulation about diversity, how we are joining different kind of population into the clinical research, not only the studies, but also I think that in the industry in general, how we are working with different communities. So in terms of my position, I think that well, in this kind of international CROs, we have different opportunities. Diversity is one of the main elements, and even is one of the main values, for all the CROs, to have people working from everywhere in every role in different areas. So I think that at least for the CRO side, we have not inconvenience on this, and there are opportunities for everyone. It doesn't matter where you are seated or where you're coming from or where you are based. I think that there are opportunities for all in this kind of opportunities. And if you can see me, well, at this time I have the opportunity to manage not only teams in Mexico but in other countries, even in Canada. I have a team in Canada where I working with. So it is an amazing to when you have that opportunity to work with different cultures, with different persons. So I think that on this side is not a big barrier to work on that. Obviously, we need to adapt to different kind of things, in terms of the language, in terms of the maybe the time zones or any other things. But at the end, I think the opportunity is there. So it is that we can look for that.
That's all thanks to globalization,
Yeah.
right, on the internet. So I wanted to ask something. Do you, for example, for somebody that is looking to apply for a job, let's say in PPD, how does that work? Is like you go online and look for the job opportunities and it's gonna show the different countries, or is like one website that is the whole all the countries in that specific website?
Well, as you know, or well, I don't know if you may know, but PPD now is part of Thermo Fisher Scientific. PPD joined it to this company 2 years ago. So all the position for those who are interested to join to the company, you can find it in the web page of Thermo Fisher, or also you can also look for opportunities in LinkedIn. At least here in Mexico, the recruitment team used to post all the positions in LinkedIn, so they could be available for all the people interested to join.
Oh, that's great to know. I'm asking because we have many students in Latin America, like I mentioned before, but most specifically right now we have a big group of students from Honduras. And I know the clinical research is not being very developed, but it's going in that direction. I'm assuming all Latin America is going to go in that direction um, the following years.
Yeah, yeah. For those, well, it is important to note that some positions can be specifically based in some countries. Unfortunately, in some countries in Latin America, in Central America, like Honduras, and Nicaragua, we don't have an office there in that kind of countries. But even though they can look for a position and apply, and if there is any fit that we can make with the
Remote.
necessity, exactly, and with the role, I'm sure that the team can contact all of them.
Yeah, we have many international doctors, so the majority of these students are doctors.
Yeah.
Mm.
How would you does even not just PPD but in general, is there a lot of how do I say nurturing of the community, the Latino community, whether at PPD or any other organization you've worked at, where they give you a space to also network with other individuals throughout the world that are Latinos as well?
Well, if you're referring to inside PPD, I think that is like in any other CRO or any other international company, we have the opportunity to make networking with different colleagues around the globe. But there is nothing different on that. And obviously, I think that these kind of spaces like you, that you work with Latinos community in different countries, where through LinkedIn or any other networking in Facebook or any other tool, it's useful to connect with other in different countries. This is what I could say, but I don't know if I'm answering your
Oh,
question.
yes, for sure. And I think the other one question would be, given your background, how you mentioned it wasn't easy getting into the industry. You know, most people will say, okay, you need to network. Others will say, you know, oh, you really need to, you know, like really be persistent with your resume, as you had mentioned you were. But would you state that, you know, getting or finding an individual to mentor you is just as important or could have just as much impact?
Well, I will say that the first thing is also to be prepared by themselves. You know, clinical research is an industry and is a highly regulated industry. So it is very important to know what are the elements around clinical research, about regulations, about good clinical practices, about medicine, even about the language. So I would say that it's very important that for those who wanted to join, it's very important to be prepared either at the university, but either are any external training programs or whatever. And after that, start doing this kind of networking with others. I in my teams and with my with the people, I have the opportunity to also to teach clinical research in some of the popular universities here in Mexico, and I recommended that they continue to be trained in different elements. And if they now are training that even if they are joining into clinical research, they can look for another programs like certifications, like the SOCRA, like the ACRP, in order that they can be continuous, be prepared for the clinical industry. Because as you know, this is an industry that is evolving every day, right? Every day. So it is important to be prepared on this.
Ivan, if you were going to give an advice or some sort of recommendation to all those new professionals that have interest on joining the industry, or actually, what would you tell yourself, your young self, when you started to do?
Mm, good question. I don't know. I will need to think, but well, if I get back to that, maybe I don't know. I will say that on that cases, I will tell to myself to be more ready in terms maybe on communication, maybe in language skills, maybe in critical thinking. You know that now critical thinking is also a very key element in clinical research. And now that we have a lot of information, we need to be very strategic in how we analyze and how we evaluate the information, all the data that is coming from the clinical research. And maybe, well, now that I remember, I will say that for me at that beginning, it would be great to take a course in Excel. And now that we are talking in analyzing the data, is good to take a training in Excel.
Oh, that's great. And what would you tell that younger self about the industry? Like, is something that you're very proud? Is something that, I mean, keep up the good work. This is an industry that is amazing, something like that, or it's just no, I'll just go a different route.
No, you know, well, I will, when I was trying to join into clinical research, I had like a parallel way to continue working in manufacturing industry. At that time, I remember that in Mexico was building like facilities for production of vaccine, of influenza vaccine here in Mexico, and I was in that kind of process also in case clinical research was not an opportunity for me, you know, and it was curious in my career because at the time I received the opportunity to join in clinical research, I received also the opportunity to continue working in that new facilities for vaccines production. And at that time, I would say, oh my God, what would be the best? Clinical research, it's like a very new industry here in Mexico. Pharma industry has a very recognized industry, has a lot of future. Most of the professional at that time wanted to work in pharma. Well, maybe nowadays it's also the same. But I realized, and oh, well, I decided to take the risk for clinical research, you know, and at this time, for sure. I did not regret. I assume that, and I'm very confident that I take the best decision to continue in this career because I love clinical research. I have found different opportunities. I have I have met people from different parts, making connection even outside of Mexico. So I'm very happy to continue on this and for the decision at that time.
Okay, now you make me curious. What was that reason that actually took you to choose research instead of the other route?
Well, at that time for me was a very new work, something that I was not too aware of this, how to develop new drugs, how to make monitoring, how to make clinical research. So that's kind of things and a different model that I used to work maybe in the lab, in the industry, in manufacturing, holds more my attention to continue in that way.
Curiosity, basically curiosity.
Yeah, I will say that. Yeah.
Well, that's probably one of the best skills to have in research, and probably in every industry, but research specifically because everything is new all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wanted to ask something. Oh, sorry.
no, go
So I wanted to go back because you had mentioned about some training you do at the university, some of the main universities in Mexico City, I think. So is that an actual like program in research? Is it just a one-time course you do? What exactly is it that you do at the universities to provide that
Okay.
training? What training do you provide? Yeah.
Yeah, here in Mexico City, there are some universities that offer like a training program. It is like a postgraduate program in clinical research. And most of the health and science professionals used to take this kind of programs after graduated in order to try to insert in a different kind of industry. I have been invited for several years ago to be part of this kind of training program, specifically in clinical research and monitoring for those interested to join into clinical research.
What is
So
the, sorry, go ahead.
no. So I was gonna say, so someone's going to college, getting their degree, bachelor's degree. This is like another program they could take in addition to what they're trying to do. Or if
Exactly.
they want to go back and do like a certificate program, this would be something that's offered at those universities.
Yeah,
Correct. Okay.
this is after they started the university. In Y University, I also started teaching. Is now is part of the regular program at the University for Health Science Professional. That I think it's very important because maybe some of the universities here in Mexico follow this example to join into their programs this kind of training, of course, to be part of the university programs. Maybe some of the students that I have had in some of these kind of programs are connected. So I think that has been very useful for them because at least if I compare myself with them, at the time I was graduated, I have no idea about clinical research. And now most of them could know about more a little bit about this.
That's very cool. And thank you for sharing that and that you're able to be part of that. Because I think we used to have a similar situation in the US. I think there's more programs now, certificate programs, but it was the same thing. How do we get clinical research to the younger generation, right?
Yeah.
How do we get it to them in the schools? And so that's really cool to hear that that's happening in Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw like a question here in the chat, and yeah, there are degrees in clinical research, but as far as I know, in Mexico, most of these kind of programs in clinical research are starting as a postgraduate program or even as a master degree program. So the people start making more involved in clinical research after university, and the idea is that we can involve more earlier, right?
See, I think
And
that
do
was
you
the
know what are
question.
the requirements? Do you know what are the requirements? Like, for example, if they ask that you have to have a specific type of education or bachelor's or degree, or like if they have to speak English, for example, in order to join these classes.
Yeah, in the places where I used to teach, the main requirement is that they are bachelors in health science. It is the main requirement, and also they need to pass like a English exam with the basic levels at least.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. Obviously, I mean, if what would they do with that with the degree if they don't have English? If
Exactly.
they don't know English, then yeah,
Yeah, and
totally
because the
understandable.
information, and even though the training is provided in Spanish, the information that we provide to the students is in English. When we review a protocol, when we review a monitoring visit report, when we review, I don't know, a follow-up letter or any kind of information, basically it's in English. So that's why I insist again, English for this industry is basic, it's mandatory for all of those who are interested.
Very good. Yeah, I think we have another question. Oh no.
Yeah, I think, well, there was one question. You kind of talked about it a little bit, but getting into the industry already has its challenges. What tips do you have for someone with an associate's degree in clinical trial research versus someone with a bachelor's degree in something else other than clinical research to begin in this industry without experience?
Okay, sorry, but I hear some noise in the background. So could you repeat the question,
Yeah,
Judy, please?
so getting into the industry already has its challenges. What tips do you have for someone with an associate's degree in clinical research versus someone with a bachelor's degree in something else that's not in clinical research to begin in this industry without experience?
Okay, without experience, I think that the best, well, the best thing that you can or you can focus is first in soft skills. It is important that for those who are part of the jail or has any kind of involvement in health science or nursing or whatever that are involved in medicine, the other part to be aware is about the soft skills. Clinical research it requires contacting with different people at different levels, with doctors, with CROs, with sponsor, with global teams. So trying to increase these skills in professionalism, in communication, in leadership will help a lot to start joining into the clinical research. And also, I don't know if maybe you have heard about the framework of competencies and abilities required in clinical research. And in that framework, you can find 8 different elements required for all clinical industries, for all clinical research industries. So if you can take a look on this framework, you can review what are the main competencies and abilities required for all professionals that wanted to join into this file.
Yeah, and also that changes depending on the country, right? Because let's say in United States is a little bit more open to other professionals, while in other countries it actually requires a healthcare background. Like I'm almost positive in the majority of countries in Latin America that's the case.
Yeah.
That people require some health or science background, while in United States is a little bit more open.
Yeah, yeah. I can share with all of you this framework of competencies
Oh,
in,
that would
in,
be
in
amazing.
clinical research. So in case
Yeah.
there is someone interested here, let me put this in the chat. For those interested, you can take a look on this link, and you will find this framework of competencies and abilities required for all clinical research professionals. And you can see what is the level of competencies required on each of these competencies. So it's very
Wow,
interesting,
thank
this.
you for sharing.
Yes, thank you so much, Ivan. It's going to be super helpful for many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to kind of like go into something else and change it a little bit. So I know you've been doing this for a while, right? All your different roles and background. What are you looking to do in the future? What would you like to do? Whether it's a different change in role or, in the future, where do you see yourself, I guess, in 5-10 years in clinical research, you know, if that's something you're looking at doing?
Yeah, well, uh, it's also interesting to know what will be my my way in the future. And something that I can say is that my intention is to continue working here in clinical research industry. This is my main point, to continue working. I love clinical operations. I love to be in contact with the operations of the and conduction of clinical trials. I also love to manage, to continue managing teams. I actually, well, there is not too much time that I started leading teams in a different countries. For example, Canada. That for me has represented a real challenge to be in touch with people with a different language, with a different regulation, with a different operation, with a different with a very set of difference compared with Mexico or even other countries in Latam. So I would like to continue learning about how other countries performs and conduct clinical research. So I don't know, in the future, I also can see myself leading teams in other countries, maybe in other regions, getting more involved in the operation for other sponsors, maybe for different sponsors.
I
And
hear a
if
lot of operations.
yes,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
assuming that's
this
gonna
is
be
Right.
your path.
Right. It looks
yeah,
like.
this is the thing that I most love about
And
this.
how easy or hard is it to transition your PBD Mexico, say you wanted to, or you had to relocate to another country? Is that an easy trajectory or transition if you're within the same sponsor, CRO?
I have seen different examples of people who has moved from one country to another, not only for Mexico, but even for other countries, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, either. So I think that it will depend of different elements. First, the need of the company, or also the country, the study. Also, it is important about the companies, because as you know, to relocate one people from one country another is not easy. It involves immigration laws, sponsorship for some of the companies, and not all the companies are sometimes aware or willing to do that or to support this. But at the end, considering that we are a global industry, I think that is an opportunity for everyone working here. I have a lot of examples for our friends that have moved from Mexico. Particularly, I have a friend it was my friend in the university. We both started working in PPD. He moved to Canada, and he is currently working in Canada. I have another friends that are working in Spain or UK or other countries in the US also. So I think considering that it's a global industry, there is also opportunities to relocate for other countries.
I'm gonna piggyback in that question. So is Mexico, does Mexico has many professionals from other countries from Latin America, or not really? I mean, I'm asking because obviously there is a shortage globally, right? There are not
Right.
many people working on this industry. So naturally, if there are not professionals that are located in the country, are there many professionals from different countries working in Mexico?
In Mexico specifically, I think not too much. I don't know really, but as long as the people can be like legally stayed in the country with all documentation in place, I think that they can see opportunities and try to acquire one of them. This is another important point. But in Mexico, I think the majority are Mexicans, because we are not like a diversity country, you know?
Okay. Well, but in Latin America is one of the main countries that people will be interested to move, right?
Right.
So because of all the trajectory and obviously the economy and all the opportunities.
I mean, I would, I would love
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I have family
So
in Mexico. I'd love to transition over there if I could. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
exactly. So see, even somebody from here would like to move there. So I think it's because it's a pretty interesting country, and then having all those opportunities. But obviously, the countries in Latin America, believe it or not, have more difficult immigration process. Like I'm Colombian, I know it's nearly impossible to get Colombian papers if you're not Colombian. So uh, I'm assuming it's almost the same throughout the whole Latin America.
Yeah, and well, it is important to consider that as an international company, we also ensure, and I'm sure that is not the only PPD, it's all the CROs in general, that we need to ensure that all people that is working with the companies based in the different countries needs to ensure that they are like all in rule, right? All the papers, all documentation, they are in the country, they are international, they need to ensure that they are meet with all the rules and labor regulation for each of the country in order to join. So as long as they can demonstrate this, they can acquire and they can be available. They can be able to get an opportunity into the company, so, or insert into the different process.
So we have a question from Perla Nunez. She's asking, have you visited PPD in Wilmington, North Carolina?
No, unfortunately not. I have the opportunity to visit the office in Wilmington, but in Raleigh. So I know some office in of PPD around the globe in Canada, in US, in Raleigh, in UK. But unfortunately, I have not had the chance to visit Wilmington so far.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually, and that's what I was, in Texas. I never got to see any of them actually. So yeah. But that's, I mean, I think it's great. One, that you're doing what you're doing, two, that you really love what you're doing, and to know that you're going to be in the next few years, even in higher roles and positions. That's honestly one of, if I could ask for anything in the next 3 to 5 years, is to be able to see more and more Latinos in higher role positions, not just, at sites, but CROs and sponsors representing our community, amazing, as much as possible. And really just, also, taking a handout and helping the rest of the community, right? And just maybe not so much, you have to get them jobs or anything, no, but just, sharing the wisdom, letting them know that it's possible, being that representation, that it's possible, because it's just, definitely, it's a journey for everybody. So, but yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, but thank you for mentioning that, Ashley. That's actually our responsibility to tell the world about research, especially our family and friends, because many people, even our own family, don't really understand what we do for work. So starting from the people that surrounding us, spreading the word, that will be amazing. Even whether they go in the direction of going in this profession or they decide to participate in a clinical trials. I always tell people that participating in clinical trials is like letting our voice be heard, right? So it's a way to it's like when you vote, right? For a president or for somebody. It's you're participating, your voice is there, you're part of the data. And the more Latinos participate in clinical trials, and I mean, obviously, the whole world, we will have more effective drugs for everybody.
No, absolutely.
Or
And
treatments.
No, absolutely. And I will say that it doesn't matter the side that we are working on this process, right? No, it doesn't matter if you are on the site, on the sponsor, on the CRO, or any other companies around there for recruiting, for advertising, for ethics committees, etc. I think that as you said, Monica, the main goal is to bring more innovative therapies that can help people. So it doesn't matter where you are sit from. The idea is that we can get involved and contribute with our best to have more new drugs and medicines that can help people for sure.
So I wanted to add, thank you for coming on today, because we know these roles exist in other countries, but we don't get to hear from individuals that actually have these roles in other countries, and especially like you started at the bottom and you moved your way up. So thank you for going over that with us, for sharing that with our LICR community, because there's a lot of people that could be based in Mexico that are going to watch this video that didn't realize they could have these opportunities, that are hopefully going to go back and do research and update themselves on how they can start in the industry. Because I think this is what we're doing in Latinos in Clinical Research, is interviewing people bringing this information to others so they can hear and see that it is possible, right? There's opportunities out there. You do have to look for them. You do have to spend the time. You do have to apply, and it's going to take a lot of work to get it, especially with no experience. But there are opportunities. Just connecting with the right places, going to the right job postings with the right company, PPD. They'll give you those opportunities. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
No, thank you. Thank you all for the invite, and for sure, let me know if I can do for the community. I'm very, very happy to connect with all of you, and if there is anything more I can do to continue promoting with you a clinical research industry about how we can do the things better, please let me know, and I will be happy to join.
For sure. Thank you.
Ivan, how people
Yeah.
can connect with you?
Well, you can find me in LinkedIn. Is the only social media that I use. But in LinkedIn, you can find me. My name is Ivan Castillo. You can find also the title there, and for sure we can connect through LinkedIn. That is the main media that I use.
Thank you so much, Ivan. I really appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
So much,
Okay.
everybody, for being here today. We appreciate it. This recording will be posted. Please share with those that you know who could really use the information. And again, thank you so much, Ivan. Everybody, you have a great night, and until next time. Thank
Okay.
you.
And see you
Thank you.
next month for those attending Save Our Sites
Go ahead.
conference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
you.
And thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.